Big Pharma America gets the opportunity to rake in so much money. They are making profits off of other people's pain. Let me break this down for you. Let me dress this up for you. It's one thing to make a profit. Don't begrudge anybody that, but it's the way that you make the profit. And if you making a profit cause death and destruction and despair, you ought to find another way to make a profit. And do you gotta make a profit that's 1,000 times higher? Do you really have to do it that way? Especially when you are in an industry that depends on the American tax dollars to do most of the research, and in some cases, all of the research before you can bring those drugs to market. This is something we should wrap our minds around. So here in the States, the exploitation of those who are uninsured or underinsured by companies such as Moderna or Pfizer, who will seek to increase the prices of their vaccine, knowing good and well what the circumstances are. And that's what Senator Bernard Sanders was getting at in his questioning of that CEO. So those who are uninsured, which is approximately 8% of the US population, have few options for COVID-19 care, said Jodie Guest, professor and vice chair of the Department of Epidemiology at Emory University's Rollins School of Public Health. With the emergency declaration ending, there may be economic barriers to getting vaccinated. While private insurance companies may be inclined to cover vaccines similar to annual influenza shots, nothing is guaranteed. Those without insurance coverage may have to pay the entire cost. Again, this should not be happening in the United States of America. Quite frankly, it shouldn't be happening anywhere in the world. But let me put a finer point on the richest nation on earth. It is beyond cruel, really, to expect the people who funded your vaccines to pay up to $130 for one dose when you've been glad to sell it to the federal government for just $26 a dose. What makes this different? This is hypocrisy, this is greed, this is unpatriotic. I wish I could say it's un-American, but it's unpatriotic. Let's go ahead and just take that word back. What these companies are doing is unpatriotic. And let us remind you that Moderna and Pfizer have made billions off of the COVID vaccines already. JPM 23, Moderna reaped 18.4 billion in COVID vaccine sales last year. Projects at least 5 billion in 2023. But I guess that's just not enough money for these people. To put this in perspective, the administration and the Senate were quicker to end these emergencies than they were to take the time to pause and reflect on the fact that over 1 million Americans have died from COVID. We said that already. This headline right here, the COVID pandemic drives Pfizer's 2022 revenue to a record $100 billion. Now y'all know what? This is time for me to throw my papers, but I ain't got enough yet to throw. But that's the kind of moment we are in. I want to throw my fire extinguisher, but I don't want to mess up my studio. That's the kind of moment that we are in. Where is the righteous indignation, America, over this type of greed and this kind of gluttony and this kind of immorality? Because this, folks, is truly immorality. We have a national mourning that we must get to. Dan, I sigh deeply.
Yeah, I really wish, in a civilized country would have a special holiday or maybe a week even where we'd be able to actually mourn all the loss and take it seriously from COVID-19 pandemic. But when it gets so why we kind of take it as normal that of course it's American, of course it's very understandable that these multinational companies and these pharmaceutical corporations that got money from governments everywhere to subsidize the research and development because of this emergency situation, they're then turning around and going, okay, time for us to profit now. I really encourage people to check out economics professor from University College London, Mariana Mazzucato. She wrote a great book called The Entrepreneurial State. Again, The Entrepreneurial State, that really reframes this whole idea about why is it that governments take all the losses from corporations getting a lot of research and development money and tax subsidies from these governments. But when it's time for all these corporations to make these record profits, billions of dollars in gains, all these corporations do is avoid taxes. There's no structures in place so that these governments get any return on their investment, just like a venture capitalist expects and demands to. So we need an entire reframing of the system.
That's a great analogy, Dan. Absolutely. When we make that kind of investment, you think of us as the venture capitalists. Where's our return on that investment? Amen to that, Dan. We're going to keep pressing on this, and I hope that you will too. We just cannot continue to let these corporations and these feckless politicians get away with not really standing up for we, the people.